What's up, everybody? Connor here from the Horny Goat crew, and of course, it is Monday. You know what that means. On this edition of the Marvel Roundtable, we enter and continue into Marvel's MCU Phase 2 with Thor's own individual sequel. Can Thor topple the Dark Elves? Can he topple the Aether? Can he topple a Loki betrayal? But more importantly, can he top box office sales? Is this movie as bad as everyone says it is? Well, we're going to break it down on this week's edition of the Marvel Roundtable. We break down Thor, the Dark World, right here on the Marvel Roundtable. What's going on, everybody? Connor here from the Horny Goat crew and, of course, the Horny Goat Podcasting Network. Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and others, to Thor the Dark World. This is going to be an interesting subject as we're going to tackle Thor's sequel, as we are in the second movie of MCU Phase number 2. And there's some interesting debate about this, as a lot of people consider this to be not a fantastic movie. In fact, some people think it's one of the lowest movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But is it really? We all saw Iron Man 3, so we'll talk about that right here on the round table this week. Of course, you guys know me. I'm Connor. Of course, I'm joined by the wonderful cast and crew of the Horny Goat crew. First and foremost, right above me, I got my boy Rayshawn. What's going on, Rayshawn?
Not much, just chilling out here. You feel me? Out here in Brooklyn, know what I'm saying? Know what I mean?
I'm surprised you weren't with us last week. What happened?
What happened last week?
Iron Man 3.
Iron Man 3. That's exactly why.
That's all we need to know. And of course, we also got with us the power couple of the Horny Goat crew. We've got Heather and JP. What is up, guys?
Not much. He's in pain.
A lot of pain. That's all I can say.
Well, at least we're not compiling it with Iron Man 3 and Vita Rays. Lots of Vita Rays. That's what you need, JP. And of course, everyone's favorite bear from upstairs, Canadian Basement. What's up, Basement?
What's up, man? I'm ready, willing, and disabled.
I feel like that's not the first time you've said that. I feel like it's not the first time I feel that.
It's my motto for my life.
We got everybody joining us in the chat, and of course, love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions on the movie as we break it down. We did throw a poll up as well, thumbs up or thumbs down. Always love to hear your guys' thoughts on whether or not you thought, and your opinions about this movie as we dive every single week into every movie in the MCU. And of course, as I mentioned at the top of the program, we're talking Thor the Dark World, which is going to be a it's interesting because going into this, a lot of people, the genuine consensus is that a lot of people did not like this movie, or it's one of the weaker movies of the MCU, which, spoilers, there's worse. In fact, even if you look at last week's, by comparison, there's worse. But we got a lot of wonderful people in the chat. Of course, we got our usual compadres. We got Tim, we got Alpha, we got the real Cody. What's going on, everybody in the chat? Much obliged. Of course, you can listen to us on your favorite podcasting platforms too: Apple, Google, Spotify, Anchor, and iHeartRadio. All the links are down below in the description, as well as our playlist if you want to check out any of the other previous episodes. So real quick before we get into the whole thing, I mean, again, not going in depth into this, genuine consensus. What'd y'all think of the movie without going into too much detail, which we'll get into in a minute, but what'd you guys think of Thor the Dark World?
I liked it.
Heather gave a big old thumbs up.
I liked it because, remember last week I said...
I don't want to remember last week, but okay.
What I think makes a good movie?
Yes.
Good storytelling.
Yep.
And good acting.
Yep.
Was it awesome? It wasn't Oscar worthy.
No.
But to me, it was good storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And it was good acting. I enjoyed the acting in this movie. I mean, yeah, there were some bad, but overall, the acting was pretty good. My favorite character in this movie is Darcy. I fucking love her, man.
Mew mew.
I like looking at her too. Oh, that's not why you like.
Kat Dennings. No, I like her.
Own, man.
She is really good at the comedy of and trying and
Being serious
at the same time.
Right.
Yep.
Thor did a really good job, especially who's Richard?
Who's Richard?
I mean, It's great. It's a good movie. I enjoyed it. That's why I liked it. It was consistent. The movie moved fast, and it wasn't a 2.5 hour diatribe of fucking
Or Psyche.
Tony Stark, yeah, Psyche, fucking PTSD,
Yep.
and fucking Captain America. I don't like the suit I'm wearing. I got ideas for it. I just
I get you.
that's how I. This movie was good. It was good. It wasn't awesome. It was
It
good.
did what it needed to do to carry on from the previous movie to the next movie,
Right.
or whatever following that.
I
Yep.
think what this movie is doing is starting to introduce the stones, because the stones haven't really been mentioned all that much. The Tesseract, yes, we know it is probably one of said stones. However,
They
I
didn't.
I think they're starting. Well, they're starting to.
Yep.
This Aether is, I think, one of them. I don't know.
So Heather, real quick, you're like, again, just brief, non-spoiler, non-depth, just overall thoughts. You gave a thumbs up earlier when I mentioned it.
Thor is my favorite character in the Marvel universe because of these movies. I mean, the first one was great because it was that fresh breath of fresh air, because it was a new character. It wasn't Tony Stark. It wasn't
Tony Stark, right?
It wasn't Tony Stark. It wasn't a fifth fucking Batman. It wasn't a seventh Spider-Man.
Right.
It's just fucking. It was something new, and they
Right.
kept it in that same zone of it's something new added to the universe, and that's why I love it.
Even though Thor is part of the universe, but I mean,
Yeah,
it's-
I get what Heather's saying.
It's
Basement. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Roshan.
No, I was piggybacking what she said. It's only one Thor. That's what
Yep.
she was coming from. Like, it's only one Thor, not 5 Thors and remake after remake after reboot. So yeah,
So
just
basement.
like Spider-Man's. Sorry, go ahead.
It's okay. I keep interrupting. I'm sorry. Bad fucking connection. So basement. This was your quote. You said you originally, when we were going to this, you're like, oh, I'd never seen this before, but now you're like starting to get memories back of it. I mean, your take kind of on it.
Like, I think when I first watched this movie, I only saw like I might have been at someone else's house or something where I only saw like the first 10 minutes or 15
Like you
minutes
weren't paying
of it,
attention fully to it.
or I wasn't. Yeah, because I remember very small parts of it, but I know
Yeah.
I didn't remember the overall storyline. So me going in as a relatively fresh viewer to this after watching, I've seen everything almost else in the MCU.
Mhm.
A lot of people paint this movie as terrible. I would never say it was a terrible movie. I'd say this movie serves its purpose in the timeline, though there are obvious issues with the movie. I think a lot of people might have not liked this movie because I guess it retreads some old ground from the first one. I mean, for continuity's sake, but a
Yeah.
lot of people were expecting, I want another new big bad or whatever, which he kind of got, but even though he was kind of, we'll get into him.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Again, I think that's that common thread of these early movies, with the exception of Loki, the villain's usually the weakest part, which we'll break that down in a second. But love to hear everybody's thoughts as well in the chat real quick. So I did see Tim saying they're starting to establish the importance and the power of the stones. We'll get to there for sure. Rayshawn Alpha says Rayshawn pretty much back to normal now. Had to cut the grass and get rain tomorrow. Plus, good thing we're done with the cold until September. So glad you're hanging in there, Alpha. Hope you're feeling better. Rayshawn in the chat agreed that Marvel is superior to DC.
Marvel kill their enemies, DC don't. Move on.
I think that's debatable. I'll just say that's debatable.
What was said?
Marvel.
Marvel kills their enemies, DC don't.
Okay,
That's
I mean that.
true.
Well,
Batman killed the Joker in the first Batman movie. What do you mean?
Yeah, in the very first Batman
Yeah,
movie.
Did you not
Two-Face
watch-
died.
did you not watch the Michael Keaton Batman?
I watched that, but I'm talking about comics overall.
Two-Face
Oh
died.
yeah.
Well, yeah, because, and I understand. I know about comic books. You can't kill the fucking bad guy because then what does the fucking
What do you do
hero
for the next one?
Who's the hero gonna fight?
Yeah.
Like look at the Incredible Hulk and fucking the weekly Spider-Man show that used to be on when I was a kid. You had some guy here, you're waiting for the Green Goblin basement, and you get some fucking douche canoe. You get some fucking douche canoe that fucking, you know.
Shut up about goblins. Heather's
We
gonna pee
talking
herself.
goblins?
Shut the no. We won't have to talk to goblins until Spider-Man No Way Home, for God's sakes.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna get this off my now.
Anyway, shout out to Federico joining us in the chat too. What's going on, my friend? But all right, let's break down a little bit real quick about the backstory about this movie in terms of the pre-production going into this. So it's interesting that that this movie was kind of up in the air. So again, this is post Disney takeover. And they said, obviously, you know, they did the Thor movie, and obviously going through the Avengers movie, and they said that basically the Thor 2 movie was a very big question mark, and it was based upon whether or not the first movie was going to be a success. Obviously, the first movie was a pretty massive success. Kenneth Brown, I can't pronounce the last name, I'm going to butcher it like crazy. The director of the first Thor movie responded to Kevin Feige's statement about making a second movie and going off in a new adventure, saying, "It's kind of news to me. Here's what I'd say to that I'm thrilled that they're confident. I still wait for the audience to tell us whether or not it should be a second one. And then if it's a nice conversation to be had among all of us, that'd be thrilling. But he has too much Irish superstitious blood in me to assume that Thor 2 would happen." Feige later explained that Marvel Studios would gauge how well Thor did at the box office for sequels, but stated that Don Payne, the director now, is working on story ideas for part 2. We got various options to discuss coming back, but right now the focus is on the first one. Of course, when Disney took over, it's full fucking throttle. So basically, it wasn't really up to them. It was kind of up to Disney. And once they kind of acquired everything, it's like, let's do sequels like crazy and kind of really blow things out of proportion. So, with obviously the story, and we'll get into more detail. Interesting, though, that we did have a couple of people leave for creative differences. Originally, one of the writers, Jenkins, felt that she could not have made a good film out of Thor 2 because I wasn't the right director. I could have made a great Thor if I had done the story that I wanted to, but I don't think it was the right person to make the Thor out of the story they wanted to. Jenkins had intended to create a film based on the premise of Romeo and Juliet, where Jane was stuck on Earth with Thor forbidden to come and save her. After Thor eventually does travel to Earth, he and Jane would have discovered that Malekith was hiding the dark energy inside of Earth because he knows that Odin doesn't care about Earth, so he's using Odin's disinterest in Earth to trick him. That sounds like garbage.
Actually, it does. Yeah. It sounds like shit in comparison to what this movie.
That sounds like crap. So I'm very, very happy that we got what we got. In comparison.
You Jenkins, you fucking asshole.
That is not a good idea. So,
how many times do we have to see Romeo and Juliet on screen, man?
I mean, I do enjoy the movie, but you know, just But anywho,
Leonardo DiCaprio, new one, or the New Age one?
He was in a New Age one.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But anyway, yeah, I think consensus across the board. That sounds like a garbage idea for like Thor being stuck to just no. But that actually is going to bring up a relative little mini plot point that I'm going to talk about a little later on in the movie. But let's actually get into the thick of things in the movie itself. So before we even start anything with the movie, it's exposition, baby, and we explain basically the antagonist in the movie. So eons ago, Bor, the father of Odin, so Thor's grandfather, clashes with the Dark Elf Malekith, who seeks to destroy the universe using a weapon known as the Aether, spelled with an A. I don't fucking write this. After conquering Malekith's forces, including enhanced warriors called the Cursed, again with a K, I don't write this shit, on their homeworld of, I'm not even gonna fucking try to pronounce that one, Svarthelheim. Bor safeguards the.
You gotta roll your R's.
Bor safeguards the Aether within a stone column. Unbeknownst to him, Malekith, his lieutenant Algrim, and a handful of Dark Elves escape into suspended animation. So basically, the idea is that they want to use the Aether as a way to encase the entire universe in darkness, which, okay, straight, simple, evil for evil's sake. I can kind of get behind that. Did anyone else, by the way...
Darkness?
did anybody else get a little bit of concern when they saw the Dark Elf when like one was turning into molten? I'm like, oh god, extremis flashbacks from Iron Man 3. No, no, no.
Can he breathe fire? So cool.
I don't know, and I didn't ask that much questions. I mean, the one thing I'll give these Thor movies in terms of like setting up stuff, it's like cool, straight to the point, bing bang boom. We got our like, okay, bad guy, I'm gonna rule the world, and so I guess that I guess I kind of get not destroying the ether because, you know, as we later find out much further down the road, and even kind of in this movie a little bit, that the ether really can't be destroyed. So.
Right.
I always kind of scratch my head sometimes with the idea of, okay, when people have this powerful thing, oh, we should really destroy it. No, let's bury it deep within. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? But we know that the ether can't be destroyed. So, I mean, not a bad setup so far. I mean, the villain's a little bit kind of evils for evil's sake, but I can't complain, right?
Welcome to the end Marvel party.
Yeah, the way they set it up is it's within history, and it's these dark elves who have spent all of their eternity in darkness, and they want everybody else to suffer that same darkness. So it kind of makes sense for this fight to be happening because Asgard is basically the land of light.
It's like it's just like night all the time. That's what they want.
Yep. So clap off. That's what they want constantly.
You can see in the dark.
Well,
just like goblins.
Don't.
I'll put it away.
For now, you can bring it out later. I mean, Rayshawn Basement, JP, like thoughts on like the initial setup of this. I mean, kind of straight and to the point. Like within like less than 10 minutes, we kind of know everything.
Yeah, like it didn't have you like sitting there questioning and wondering, okay, what is the plot? What's happening? What's going on? It literally held your hand and guides you throughout the story arc of what's going to happen and what are we planning on happen. What we oh god, I can't talk. What are we planning on creating? Basically,
you know what?
like,
it kind of reminded me of the Lord of the Rings start, where it gives you a huge amount of history in like 10 minutes.
But it's all understandable and you can follow it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
It's easily digestible for anybody that doesn't know Norse mythology or cares to look into it.
Right. So we instantly then cut over to present day Asgard. Loki stands in prison for his war crimes for, of course, what happened during the Avengers movie. Which I'll be honest with you, and this is obviously going back to Loki being such a good character and Tom Hiddleston being a great actor. One of my favorite things in this movie is, I know there's a lot of talking, but there are some interactions with characters that are very, very good, and they're very deep and very great in terms of building their character. And this one between Loki and Odin, where they're going back and forth about like him being basically imprisoned, it was very, very good. I wish it was flushed out a little bit more. And
the exact same thing.
Really?
Though.
Yeah, exactly.
They kind of do later on in the movie, though.
Sort of ish, yeah. But the one line I particularly love more than anything was the, you seek for something along the lines of, you seek for a throne so much, and he goes, it's my destiny to rule a throne. He goes, it was your destined to die had not been for me. And it's just like, it does put things in perspective. By the way, this scene also I kind of found interesting was that it confirms that Asgardians are not really gods, or at least not in the realm of reality. They are beings of some kind. They're not immortal, although they do age extremely rapidly because they say give or take 5,000 years. So okay, they're still unknown beings, sure. I mean, this kind of
between man and God somewhere, because they it's like Hercules or whatever, you know what they're I guess not
demigod, yeah.
They're like a demigod where they have godlike powers and they live for X number of years, but they still die.
Well,
so
they did reference throughout this movie, like somebody asked, how is space? And Thor goes, space
Yeah.
is fine.
Yeah,
So
right.
you know he's from another planet or another
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
This is why I can buy Thor, because he's not of this world.
Yeah.
Right.
Also, they have a lot to draw on in terms of
honestly-
mythology.
Yep.
And we honestly, it's just, I hate doing this, like Star Wars. We honestly don't know what another galaxy can or cannot do. There may
Right.
be a force. We just aren't able to use
Well,
it.
there may be anything, right? Like
Yeah.
No, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. So
the setting allows for that, and I get you. Like, it allows for that world to be created however the writer wants it to,
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
because of the unknown, the sheer unknown of space. But I love how they actually portray the different plane. It's like, I guess, like planes of existence, but also like world alignments or whatever. Or I don't know. It's, what the fuck did they call it with the tree of life?
Yeah, the tree of
And
life.
the 9 different
The 9 realms.
worlds. Yeah,
The
9
nine
realms.
realms.
there we go.
Yeah.
Raisha, I mean, your thoughts on the initial like conversation, Loki and Odin, anything to take away on that?
I didn't look at it and understood it in the way I did it. I just looked at it and watched the movie.
Fair.
I didn't like grasp, what they were saying, but as a son, you look at your dad and you're like, you really gonna lock me up in prison? That's how you're gonna treat me? That's what I got from him.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the father's trying to teach you something. You
Yeah.
did this to yourself. I don't want to do this to you, but you did this to yourself.
There's a lot of familial themes and emotions and connections and
Mhm.
growth in throughout this movie, and it's very I think that's honestly, in my opinion, the biggest strength of this movie, in
Yeah,
terms
'cause
of
it kind of had me side with Loki at some points, but then I'm like, yo, fuck you, and then side with Thor. Then I'm like, yo, Thor, come on.
yeah.
And
That's why it's a shame we didn't really see more. Like, I mean, I'm gonna say it right now. Fucking Hiddleston and what's his face?
Hemsworth?
No, Odin.
Oh, Anthony
Oh,
Hopkins.
Anthony
yeah.
Hopkins.
Yep.
They absolutely destroy it on screen together.
Yeah.
And you don't get like they have
Which
great
was
interactions.
a little bit,
anytime-
yeah, there's just a little bit more in that opening scene.
Yeah, it didn't have to be too much, or they revisited it maybe without those two, but they don't. Like, I get why. But they're both right and wrong at the same time, so it gets you
Right.
kind of like on this. After that interaction, I didn't really like either of them, and that's where Thor comes in as the dumb jock. Hey, bro.
Viva Las Vegas. But we see
I
as
just
Loki.
thought, like, it was mostly like the mother
the
was
tree of life. Yes.
the mother was trying to like neutralize the situation, but
Well, she
didn't really
does,
have
in a
any
way.
say. Would you
Awesome.
say?
I said she does in a way later on. We'll get there.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, we then cut over to Thor, who alongside his fellow warriors that we saw from the first movie, I can't believe these names, Frandral, Volstagg, and Sif, repel marauders on Vanaheim, home of their Moidors. These grasping
Get the
Moidors.
mortars. Fucking World War II.
The murderers, the murderers on Vanaheim, home of their comrade Hogan brother. It is their final battle in a war to pacify the 9 realms following the reconstruction of the Bifrost, known as the
Pacify them
Rainbow.
with killing everyone.
Yeah, by the Rainbow Bridge between realms, which had been destroyed 2 years earlier. So this is kind of the big question mark I have about the entire fucking movie. It is alluded to and it is mentioned very point blank several times that the Bifrost is destroyed, which is the connection way that they shoot them over into different realms. Yet somehow Thor is able to travel no problem. What?
They all got to that realm somehow.
But-
right?
I'm
Things
confused.
can-
I think that was the end of it, and then they go back showing that it's fixed.
Things
But-
can be fixed.
They go back after this is saying we finally done what we needed to do, and we fixed all the 9 realms, and now the Bifrost is back. But I just don't understand how they travel to these places to fix them.
That's my that is probably my only big plot gripe about this entire movie. Is it's like, okay, you keep saying that the Bifrost is broken. It doesn't look like it's broken. Thor's able to travel all these places.
They probably fixed without even letting us know. It just, I don't know. It got fit. It got fit.
comic movie. Fuck it. Vita Rays. It was Vita Rays. Vita Rays fixed it.
This scene was pretty fucking corny, man.
I mean, of course it was. I accept you also. Did anyone else notice the rock creature?
From the stone giant from fucking Neverending Story.
Well, I was gonna say it also looks like what's his name from Korg.
Yeah.
Well, I think he's part of that race, but this looked exactly like that stone-eating motherfucker.
It really did. But by the way, the part that I was confused at first is that like Odin saying, "Oh, Thor is traveling the 9 realms to undo the damage that Loki did because the 9 realms are in disarray." Why? I'm a little confused as far as that part too. Like because they weren't able to travel via the Bifrost. Is that what like?
They look like fucking common people. I don't know where are they traveling to?
Like when you say
it's the trade between the realms that keeps the realms going, but it's
ain't nobody
also,
trading with Earth.
Yes, well, that's Earth. It's also the fact of they more than likely felt that with Loki trying to take over, that they felt they were going to be destroyed in the process, which is what Loki did, and it's what Thor had to go fix.
The idea I got from it was that the Asgardians were kind of like the keepers of peace throughout the realms, and when they weren't present, anarchy ensued.
That's kind of what I was thinking too in the back of my mind, but it wasn't really like touched upon as much as I would hope they would have. But I mean, that might be the game.
More explanation, yes.
Yeah, go figure. We get 10 minutes of Dark Elves, but fucking
2 seconds of them all looking at each other while like the wind slowly blows their hair.
So we see obviously Thor's
keeping or whatever his name was.
We see Thor's keeping the peace, but meanwhile, in jolly old London, England, astrophysicist Dr. Jane Foster's intern, Darcy Lewis, now with her own intern, Ian, takes Jane to an abandoned factory where objects have begun to disobey the laws of physics and disappear into thin air. So, separating from the group, Jane, well, I'll get to that part in a second. So we see Jane is trying to go on a date with a guy and trying to basically get over Thor because she hasn't seen him in 2 years. Darcy then comedically pulls her away from the dinner and brings her into this abandoned factory where there's all these different weird things are happening, where like kids are finding things. They're either like being able to lift and levitate cars with one hand, or they're throwing objects into various places in the factory and they're disappearing either and reappearing in different locations or just disappearing altogether. You talk about corny. I thought that part was a little bit corny with Darcy, but that was just me.
That should have reminded her of her Star Wars days. But
I have to go to bed, but this scene here, Heather and I were pretty much eye to eye on this, I think, with this movie, so she can speak for me pretty much.
Okay.
If she says that this is as good as Captain America, I will agree with her, because it is. So I literally turned to Heather and I'm like, are these kids like now fucking, because I didn't understand what was going on. I've seen this movie before and I must have missed this scene where the kid picked up the car. I'm like, what the fuck is this?
I thought he had powers too.
What the fuck is this? I was about to say, yeah, this movie sucks ass. So
I assured him that the kids were not supernatural.
No, it was floating.
Yeah.
So it had to do with the gravity, is what it is.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, I can buy that.
Yeah.
But again, if that was the case, I'm telling you right now, everybody, it would have destroyed Earth, because it would have ripped the Earth out of its axis and ran it right into another fucking planet, and everybody's fucking dead.
That's like a theme here, yeah.
So
I think that's going to be a shirt that we make for the show if we make it to that.
That and Vita Race.
I'll give my rating for this movie.
Sure.
It's not as good as the first one.
Agreed.
It's a little bit better than the original Iron Man, which I gave a 6 because Heather and I listened to the Iron Man on Sunday on the way home.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give it a 6.5.
All right.
I enjoyed the movie. It was a good storytelling, and the acting was really good. You
Fair
tell me a
enough.
good story, and I'll sign off on it all day.
Fair enough.
With that said, I gotta go to bed. I do have to work tomorrow, and I'm in
All
so
right.
much pain.
Feel better, JP.
Good night,
Thank-
JP.
Yeah,
Get
we
better,
always-
man.
We always appreciate you having it on.
I'm trying really hard. I keep
No,
thinking.
man.
No worries. Appreciate you coming on.
Have a good night, guys.
You too. So the Darcy part with her pulling him out of the pulling Jane out of the date. Basement. You talk about corny. I thought this part was. I still chuckled. Don't get me wrong, because I do love Darcy. She's just a very bold character.
I don't know how much I actually like that character. I'm in the minority here for saying she kind of annoys the shit out of me in this movie.
Darcy?
Yeah.
She's not annoying. Her intern's annoying.
She's annoying. She's just like
Oh
this
God, you know what?
agent of chaos that's doesn't hit home with me.
Well,
She has her moments where I could see she could be annoying, but for somebody like me, this character I could hang out with and just run over the world and just
shoot her in the head.
I was going to say basement sounds like a little bit on the opposite end.
One last thing. You're saying you'd shoot me in the head because I would do the exact same shit she does.
Probably.
We can't be friends no more.
To be fair, JP would wear the lipstick better. But so we
Here's
see
my
all
intern. How do you get an intern for an intern?
my intern's intern.
But like whatever, I get like it's great for comedic effect. It's just Kat Dennings for me never really hit home comedically.
Well,
Just
get
personal
used to her.
preference.
Well, the good news is that you won't see Darcy again for a long time.
I don't really dislike her. I just don't really like her.
Well, again, you won't
That
see
is much
Darcy
severed
for a
people, I guess.
long time. You won't see her until WandaVision.
I think that might be one of the differences for us, me and you guys in this film, because you guys all seem to like her. So,
but her character, like, besides
It balances the
little
other group
comments-
of the humans out.
Yeah, and she's actually
In my
the
opinion.
reason why all of them was brought together again.
So, like, this is just me personally. Like, you obviously have Jane, who's the love interest, who's very kind of straight-laced by the books, right? For the most part. Eric Selvig can't not love him either. Yeah, he fucking nuts. Can't not love him. So Darcy's kind of the
favorite character.
kind of the middle
Second
person
favorite.
in this one. So I mean, she blends well with the other, like the core human group is the three of them plus Ian, right? They're the core human groups. So she blends well in that group. I think that's the reason why. Plus, it's not like, yes, she obviously had a lot of scenes and moments in the movie because she's one of like the main supporting characters. But I think that the movie also, and this is just my opinion, puts her in there at the right times at just the right amount of time. I never got too sick of her.
I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea. I'm in the middle with her. I don't hate her
You said
or
you'd
love
shoot
her.
her.
She's just there.
You just said
Yeah,
you'd-
well, if I had to hang out with her all the time, probably, if that was her character. But like in the movie, because of the chemistry she has with Natalie Portman, and like she is the comedic relief for the most part.
Yeah.
It's just I don't know, like her nonchalantness to like being chased by a million guys later. It's like, okay, I guess that's the character, but
Yeah.
it doesn't really make sense.
But anyway, we see all this craziness going on. While in the midst of all this craziness with all the things disappearing, Jane gets separated from the group and somehow gets teleported to another freaking world where she just coincidentally gets infected by the Aether.
Yeah,
So
this is such a 1 in 1 trillion bazillion chance.
yeah, I know this is plot convenience. I understand that, you know.
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. She had that device and she was tracking that thing down because The
She was
strength was
tracking down
getting
the
heavier.
convergence, but she just so happened to be in a place that happened to be in a place that happened to be in a place that happened to be in place. Yeah, it is. But like I look past it because
But
it's
the
a Marvel movie.
teleportation, like as you saw throughout the
Comic book movie.
even
That's all I'm gonna
with
say.
the,
Comic book movie. CBM.
It sucked her into the door, and she ended up in some other realm.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get where y'all coming from, but I get why that happened.
I mean, for reasons why she's involved in the plot. Okay, I'll buy it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I get like that they're trying to finagle Jane into the story of Thor again somehow, but also, you know what I mean? Like they're trying to create like another new antagonist, but they also have to tie Jane into it somehow without being just the side piece, basically.
I
hate
mean,
to say it, but
I wish there was more put into it than it just being extreme plot convenience. But
whoops.
at the same time,
Yeah, I get you.
Because
at the same time, I'll accept it because of the type of movie it is, for sure.
you gotta
CBM.
remember, in the very beginning, Odin's father, he said to bury it somewhere that no one could ever get to it.
Unless
right?
you're Jane Foster.
Bury
Now
it in
the-
the same planet, in the same realm that they fucking found it in.
I got the plan. Who allowed you to
They'll
leave?
never
name
think to
is
look here
Bars.
again.
My name is Bars. Take me to the playground.
But you gotta think about it. Those
Uh-huh.
the monsters, I'm not even gonna get to the names. They didn't get it. The only way they got it is because Jane teleported into there, got it sucked into her, and then she got teleported back to Earth.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
And that's the only
plot
way
is a
they.
bit. It makes sense if you don't think about it too much.
So anyway, but no, Heather, what'd you think of like Jane gets infected by the ether? I mean, did you kind of like plot convenience, like kind of shrug it off, like yeah, fine, not gonna think about it too much, and just kind of like, okay, yeah, I can accept this.
It's one of those things. I mean,
Yeah.
being a bit on the science nerd side myself, I will run and grab something that I probably shouldn't, just as she did.
Yeah, it makes sense for her character to do in that situation to do what she did. I mean, I didn't really question it while watching it either.
It's just one of those things. It's just like when your mindset is in that field, you understand where they're going with that moment a little better than somebody else would. So it's just like, yeah, I probably would have done it too, and same thing would have fucking happened to me. So I get it. It's good. Moving on.
Right. So
Also established her character to be that way over the last movie and this movie. But anyway.
yeah. So the Asgardians learn that the convergence is happening, which is a rare alignment of all 9 realms, and it's imminent.
You
And
think
as
they care a bit more,
right? I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Avengers movie. As the event approaches, portals linking the worlds appear at random, hence why all the craziness has been going on. Heimdall alerts Thor of Jane's recent disappearance, leading Thor to, of course, go and search for her on Earth. When she inadvertently releases an unearthly force while trying to be arrested by the police for trespassing on private property, he, of course, takes her to Asgard. So this was an interesting... Sure. So she comes back after being gone for 5 hours and decides to visit Jane and actually check in on her. And she's kind of has a right to slap him twice, I think. I mean,
oh yeah, 100%. Fucking fuckboy.
Motherfucker, you were in New York. You couldn't make the trip to come fucking see me.
yeah,
The
like
Bifrost was broken.
that's my fucking point.
Is that
Well,
first I
Tim
had to
mentioned
solve
in
the
the
problems
chat
with
that
9
they did
realms.
mention in the first Avengers movie that a person could travel using energy, and what is Thor?
That's true. God of Thunder.
He's a fuckboy.
I was gonna also bring up the fact that I was actually thinking that maybe Frigga was transporting Thor, because it is confirmed she's a witch. So maybe there's some sort of yeah, Frigga's a witch. Thor's mother's a witch. They mentioned in the first movie and they confirm it in this one.
Nice.
You witch.
All right, so so
You're a witch, Avery.
he they reunite. The police go to arrest her, and what obviously is the Aether expels and like literally kicks all their asses. So Thor instinctively, let me take you home. I don't. I mean, what? I don't know if this would be the. I mean, I don't know
Does
if
he
I
really understand why this is happening at all? Like,
No.
no, right? So,
No.
I mean, there is one part that I did like when he does like Bifrost out. It takes part of a car with it. And that was kind of cool continuity
Yeah.
that showed up on the other side. But what the fuck, man? This doesn't really make any sense. And she's like, "Oh, the rain's not hitting me. That's cool."
yeah.
Why'd you call the cops?
Is that you?
But like, your first reaction is, "Why'd you call the cops?" Not, "I went to a different realm and touched the red thing, and then it took me over."
Science. I don't know. The whole idea of him like thinking like I'm gonna maybe because they were getting arrested and he was just like, I gotta get the fuck out of here, and instinctively that's where he's gonna take her back to get checked out. I don't know. It felt a little weird. Maybe that's just me.
Well,
He would have no
I think what
knowledge of
triggered
this.
him to do that was. I think what triggered him to do that was she had a supernatural force explode from her body. Normal doctors aren't gonna know what the fuck that is, and the only people that are gonna possibly know are the doctors back in Asgard.
But I thought that happens to
Take her
women
to the
once a month
Avengers.
anyway.
The
That's
power
not
of the
unexplained and
red.
it's not supernatural. That happens, and
said-
doctors know about that already.
I said I thought red stuff coming out of women's bodies supernaturally happens once a month anyway.
Like, well,
He wants
what?
to laugh. Rayshawn wants to laugh. He's like this is so fucking stupid.
It's
But
a superpower, okay? You can make babies.
yeah, that's a horrible punishment. However, when they bring her to Asgard, the Asgardian healers say they don't know how to treat her. Odin just comes right in and be like, this bitch gotta go. Get her out of
She's
here.
gonna be dead in one day. Get her
Yep.
the fuck out of here.
Get her out of here. And then as soon as they try to take her away, the same event happens again, and Odin almost instantly recognizes that it's the Aether and warns that Jane's infection will kill her given enough time, and that the Aether's return heralds a catastrophic prophecy. So,
Is it just me, or does Odin seem like
a dick?
he's kind of not the same as he was in the first movie?
No, I'm
all?
saying no. I agree with you. Yes,
Mhm.
I mean I got that. Did
Yeah.
you, Heather?
Odin in this movie is definitely a lot more strict, and I think it's because of what Loki did. He's now afraid
Good
of
point.
trusting people within his own circle as much as he did, because it was Loki who almost killed him.
I think the other part of it is, things were fine, and then between the first Thor movie and the Avengers movie, shit's gone south. Shit's gone south in a lot of different ways.
He just didn't fall into another Odin sleep.
No, he's well rested. He's refreshed. He had an 8-hour. He had a 5-hour Odin energy. Yeah. All day Odin night. But yeah, I do get that sense he's definitely more of a hard ass. And there's actually a scene that we'll talk about, which is another one of my favorites, that really emphasizes that point, to Odin's negative but to Thor's positive. This is the part where Odin kind of goes into a little bit of history and says, before the universe exists, there were still objects, there were still things, there were cosmic powers, and while many of them resembled stones, wink wink nudge nudge, the Aether took a liquid form, and he basically kind of re-explained the Aether's purpose with Malekith, like we saw at the beginning of the movie, where Thor said, I thought that was just a story, Mom told me to go to sleep, and like, nope, this is actually the real thing, and that it could kill Jane, and they got to get it out of her in some way, shape, or form. So at this point, Malekith has been awakened by the Aether's release, and turns Algrim into a cursed, meaning like one of those like jacked up elves, and sneaks him into Asgard. So this is the weird thing that, like, I guess they sent him this is the part that I was a little confused about. So they jack up his lieutenant basically into like a super elf. And then he gets just captured. He looks totally different, by the way. Like, it's not like he's just like put a mask on and like a wig and like whatever. He like looks like not even like a fucking elf at this point. And he gets captured like off camera. Yeah, he gets captured off camera. Like, where'd you pick
It looks
him up?
to me like they sent him to a planet that one of the 9 realms that they were trying to bring back under peace.
Yep.
It was the ones that they captured in the beginning.
Aggressors, and that's why he was being brought back to be imprisoned.
He was part of the group that they liberated in the beginning of the movie.
I guess. How would they know? I'm like, I guess how would they figure? Like, there's so many.
Did see him and did nothing. He's like, yeah, I guess I'm gonna be quiet about this.
Oh shit!
I think he was looking and saw something different, but I guess I don't know the extent of his powers because he didn't say anything.
Right.
I mean, he can see everything, but he can't see everything at once. From the first Thor movie, that's what I gathered, is that like, yeah, he can see something specific, but it's not like he's not like, it's not fucking like oh god, Cerebro for like Professor X. At least that's what I got out of it. But any case, but like
he was cautious about them entering. Like it showed because he stared at them when they entered.
That's true. The part that was a little weird though is like, yeah, like how did they know where to go? He's been asleep for fucking 5,000 years or whatever it is. Like, how would he know where to go?
They do gloss over some fucking points.
Yeah, those plot holes of how did they know to go here? How do they know what's been going on? They've been in.
I don't know. Without telling us, I think Loki has been teleporting, going back and forth, saying shit. I don't know. I'm just going to say it like that.
Why not teleport himself out of the prison and keep himself out?
I feel like they probably this could have been a scene that was just cut because they're like, we're just gonna let the audience choose. You know what they should have cut? Fucking scene of fucking Thor bathing himself in a sink.
Oh
no,
it's my favorite scene.
That's also my favorite scene. Why is he bathing in a sink? Did he have fucking showers and shit?
It was my favorite scene because the carpal tunnel came back. Anyway, so actually there is one little side piece on this I wanted to mention. So as of course they're showing they're taking I'm just calling him super elf, the super elf into the prison. Loki has a conversation with Frigga, his mother. And it's a weird scene because it's an in-depth conversation where he basically says and argues with her, and even says to the point he's, talking about like, you're only in here, you're only alive because like, Frigga has permitted you to be alive. Your father, and then he like yells, he's not my father, and she goes, am I not your mother? And it's revealed to be all an illusion. And I don't know, there's something I really enjoyed about that because I think it just kind of opened you up a little bit more into Loki's psyche a little bit, because you thought it was an actual conversation. I mean, it could have been Frigga because she is a witch, but it just kind of once again shows you that like, despite the fact that Thor and Loki have obviously their differences, and obviously they have a very different relationship with Odin, it sounds like they still have that strong relationship with their mother. Or at least Loki
I would
does.
also go to say that she's not the only illusion in that.
What do you mean?
I think Loki is using he might be there, but he's using his abilities to, because later on you'll see what he looks like, and he's not wearing the same clothes in that prison that what he's wearing in that scene.
Oh yeah.
So I think they're both putting on a front against each other. But it does. They're more alike than fucking they want to admit, I guess.
Yes. And I will say the line at the end of that conversation that she had was also very telling towards his psyche as well, considering she sat there and said, oh, Loki, always out to fool the others, but you can never fool yourself.
Yeah, I'm like, that's good shit.
It was a great scene, to be honest.
Yeah.
Another great scene. Loki has all the great scenes.
Yeah, that's
well, the
there's a few without him, but much like in Thor and much like what really carried the Avengers movie is Loki and Tom Hiddleston, and it's here again. I think it kudos to the writing team for being able to, I think, utilize him the right way. At least for me anyway.
Yeah, I think he's written pretty much perfect. Not perfectly, but very close.
in
Out of
terms
all
of
the, and in terms of his character, and out of all the other people in the universe, in the Marvel universe.
so far.
Yeah.
I mean, Rachel, what'd you think of this scene with between Frigga or Loki and the Frigga scene? I say that because we don't know if they're real or not.
I feel like this is one of those scenes that needed to happen. He needed to have that conversation with his mother. It's like it actually okay. We know who Loki is. This fucking guy who's he's how you say it? What's the Greek god of illusions? Not illusions, but he's the illusionist, right? Whatever.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, but what about him as a man, as a
Person.
son of, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we got to see that interaction with him as a humanized as a son to his mother, and we needed that connection. We needed to see that bond or whatever the case may be, because at the end of the day, he's all angry. Oh, he's not my father. Oh, I'm not your mother. And yes, you're not. But when she went away, he felt hurt that he said that to her, because he was lying. He was lying to himself, like, "Oh, that's my mom." You know, I'm not gonna say that it's not my mother or whatever the case would be, because
Constant
when
deceiver.
shit hit the fan later on, you saw how he looked, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We'll get there. We'll get there at the very yeah.
I honestly think like he's struggling with the fact like Loki as a character, and this is the way I look at his character. He was so angry with being lied to for so long about who he truly is,
Right.
and that anger of who he truly is has allowed him to hate everyone around him. Though he doesn't actually hate them, he feels he has to because of that lie. And that's kind of what you see in his outbursts against Odin, his outbursts against his mom.
But he really
We'll
cared
see
for
where
his
that goes.
mom, though. Like, but he don't want to admit to nobody.
Well,
He don't want to show it, but he really cared for her.
that's the other thing. Odin is the stern, kind of oppressive parent or whatever. He's trying to get him the right way through hard tactics or hard love. Whereas mom was probably never that way to begin with. So, yeah.
Good shit. Good shit. So at this point, hold on, everything's crashing on me. At this point, this is the part where I kind of like I kind of giggle a little bit. The super elf basically gets captured and he breaks free of the prison by doing the molten thing. He apparently injects himself with some sort of molten effect, and again I get flashbacks to the Extremis project from Iron Man 3. So I try to bury that deep within. What I found funny was they have like this force field around the prisons, right? It's like almost like a magical force field, for lack of a better phrase.
It's slow as fuck.
And the only thing that stopped it from breaking was the fact of pushing a guy's head against one part and then punching the other at the same time. So he stressed it.
It didn't really. Well, I mean, they kind of show that like anytime it gets hit, there's obviously like an energy there.
I would have believed more like when he like exploded from like inserting the thing. I would have believed that breaking the walls more than just like, let me stress this thing and then punch my way out, and I'm a man punch, and then just go through. And I don't know,
never keep anybody of any strength level behind bars, technically.
Wait, say that again?
Right? Like anybody that had any level of strength similar to that creature, how would they keep them behind bars there? Or behind
well, he easily
force
punches
field?
his way out of the other one, or punches all the other ones open except for Loki's.
That's what I mean. Like, it's like, what kind of fucking prison is this?
Oh, okay. I'm just like, yeah, like it's a little like.
It also looks like an Apple store for some reason.
Oh my god, you're right. I'm looking for the genius bar. You want to take the stairs to your left. So of course during During the battle, Malekith and Algrim search for Jane, knowing, of course, she contains the Aether. When they fail to capture her, they escape. But, of course, the big scene where, of course, like Thor's fighting everybody and everything's going through. One of Malekith's ships crashes through. I will say this. The Dark Elves have some pretty badass weapons. I personally love the bomb that basically just sucks everything
the
in.
whirlpool hand grenade.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
I'm like, please.
Oh,
add
the
that.
bomb was such a
Halo.
I
I
literally
was
wrote
saying that.
down cool bombs.
What is that, like a pulse grenade?
No, it like sucks. It's like a gravitational bomb or something. It sucks you
It
in.
was like a giant water ball that started swirling on itself when it got close to the people and it sucked them into it.
I'm like,
I
that's
guess
pretty
it just
cool.
It's like a black hole, but a bomb.
So I also did put in here questionable defenses for Asgard because I know
100%.
I know what happened. Obviously, he destroyed like their force field from within, so they couldn't really do the force field. But like, okay, let's back up here on this whole attack on Asgard from the Dark Elves because there's a lot to kind of dissect in terms of just like. I have a lot of questions. So
You could easily attack the Bifrost.
How-
'Cause there's no defenses around it.
So Heimdall finally senses the ship coming after it's invisible, right? He
It's
takes
inside
one
of him
ship
at this
down,
point.
and then he turns around. He's like, fuck, and sees all these other ones, right?
Which is a
Wouldn't-
big ass one.
Wouldn't the instinct be to let that one ship go? I mean, granted, he didn't see the other ones, but like, even if he didn't, just let the one ship go, alert them, and they'll then put the shields up. You know what I mean? Like, again, I get like, okay, the dark, like the super dark elf took, but like, I'm like, man,
There's a
Asgard's
couple things, man.
defenses are kind of like making me tilt my head. I'm like, they either
They're
don't,
terrible.
they either don't, like, it's either the defenses themselves suck or they're just shitty at like executing them. One of the two. I
They're
can't
shitty at
figure out which.
executing them because they're shitty at executing them because they are Asgardians. They're not
Okay,
used
first
to
of
their
all-
city being attacked.
The
They're
word guard is in their name.
First of all, they're terrible, and their defenses are terrible.
They're terrible.
So wait, why the fuck? Okay, so it's literally shown.
Yeah.
This like one thing before I go to that. The enemy ships look like fucking thrown tomahawks.
They do.
Oh
I was
god,
thinking
Tim's gonna go
Tim the
crazy
whole
in the fucking.
I was thinking Tim the whole time. I'm like, oh my god, he's behind us all.
It look like one of those. If you ever saw Power Rangers Zeo, the machine
Oh yeah,
warriors,
Machine Empire. Yeah,
the machine.
Zeo is one.
yeah.
Zeo is one of my favorites. But anyway,
Sorry. I was just thinking tomahawks the whole time. But,
God.
So, am I right in assuming that
Yeah.
Heimdall has to use his sword to activate the shield that
Yes.
surrounds the main palace?
That's what I
Why
understood.
the
Yeah.
fuck is he in
Why
a
did he
place where
leave?
nobody? Why is he in a place where no one could defend? He's literally like the penis head of the city.
But on top of that, like, why would you leave?
Who would
Like, I
build?
don't give a
Who built the defense that has to be activated way outside the city?
But
To defend the city.
Yeah, you have control of the Bifrost. The Bifrost
It's like,
can
we
act-
have
Okay.
There's no way of communicating to the people over there. Like,
We
you
could
have
have
to
a
earpiece.
We could have
can't
really
even
good
see them.
defenses, but first we have to go 1,000 1,000 miles in that direction to activate it. So who built this?
Odin, you
Oh
bitch.
my god!
Oh, there it is. There it is, Tim in the chat.
I knew it was gonna show up.
Oh, god
man.
damn it. So but the part that like makes me question, it's like, okay, let's say he didn't know, and even let's say there was one fucking ship. Why would you leave your post first? Like, activate the fucking shield, then if you want to be a hero, go do it. Because then it's like,
He was smart.
my
He said he
thought
saw
process
everything.
was like, he takes down the ship and it's like, oh, that's badass. And he looks over and there's a million. It's like, it starts running back.
You know how long it took him to run to get that ship?
Oh,
And no
God
They
almighty.
didn't shot at him, right? They just let him
No.
run.
Yep.
Yeah. He just teleported back realistically.
Yeah, we got
But
this.
but also like they have like what fucking 4 cannons that shoot at ships, and they
Yep.
have 2 ships. Like what the Asgard? They have zero defense. Is all I'm gonna say.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, they're
So
terrible.
while this is all going on, like I mentioned, Malekith and Algrim search for Jane, knowing she has the Aether in him. They find her with Frigga. After Algrim releases all the prisoners except for Loki, and Loki mentions on the way out, we want to take the stairs to your left. Now, I don't know if that meant like going into like the weapons vault or going up there. I don't think he knew Frigga was up there, obviously. I think he was just obviously trying to like show favoritism in order to like, hey, if this place is gonna burn, then fuck it, I'm gonna help it make it burn no matter what. But of course, during this whole ensuing battle, Frigga of course puts a trick in that it's not really the real Jane, and Frigga ends up getting stabbed and killed, despite Thor chasing after him and doing a badass job lighting up fucking Malekith, Two-Face, the Dark Elf. Frigga, the mother of Thor and Loki, is now dead. They of course have the ceremony, the Viking funeral with all of them, which was, I love that scene. That was a very beautiful scene.
So before that scene, because that scene is a good scene, and I want to talk about it fully, but like the idea, like when Frigga gets her fight.
Yep.
Malekith is fucking soft as shit.
Yep, he's soft as
This
baby
guy,
shit. Why do you think he needs Aether so badly?
Well, what the fuck? He was like, oh yeah, I used to be this big thing. I wanted to fight against fucking boars or whatever the fuck.
He also
his name
just
was in
woke
the
up.
past.
Give him a break.
I will not. He's Doctor Who.
Hey, he slept for 5,000 years. You sleeping after 12 hours, you feel like shit. So you should
Shit,
understand.
look at Rita Repulsa. She had a bad back and a headache every time she woke up after it. She slept for double 10,000 years. You know.
I don't know, man. He was like fucking soft serve baby shit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna disagree with you on that one.
Yeah,
But
wow.
but the whole Frigga thing happening was like Loki explodes in his cell a little bit, and like it's just the whole. It's funny because Frigga was not really well known in the first Thor movie, right? But you felt the gravity of her death. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it was very interesting. Like, you know, unlike, I don't know, say Agent Coulson,
Yeah.
this one
Mhm.
actually felt important, despite the fact that Frigga was not really featured very prominently in the first movie. So just kudos to the writers in terms of like knowing how to pat it the right way and point in that right direction, and of course give us the weight of it with like the music, the tone, and then the Viking funeral was just, I mean,
Yeah.
goddamn, visually that was a beautiful scene. No words, just the music. All of them, Frigga leaving, you know, obviously it was all the soldiers that had fallen from Asgard, but she led the scene, and then Thor like smashing his staff down and she just disappears into dust. I
Odin.
mean, it was really well done.
Yeah, it was. But yeah, no, it was.
Laughing about a funeral,
was-
basically.
No, you said Thor. It was Odin.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I mean, yeah. God damn, I have 30 fucking pages of shit that I'm trying to fucking read. All right, god damn it.
I know.
He slept for 5,000
Half
years.
these names I can't even
right?
fucking pronounce of these fucking locations. All right, god damn.
No, it was a great scene, and it's more about though she didn't get a lot of screen time. It's more about what her character meant to the characters that survived than her character itself, which is why it worked. Which is why Coulson didn't.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I just made a note here, like Frigga greater than Coulson. Just saying, like, look, I get what they're
It's
trying to do in
true.
Avengers, but like, this is how to do it right, especially with a character like you said. It's more about the effect on him afterwards, and timing wise, I just think it was handled much better. So
One thing I would say, I did want to see I would have liked to see a bit more like reaction from Thor.
agreed.
Well, he had his reaction in the fucking room itself when he attacked. Pure rage.
Yeah, I guess. And I don't think they wanted to downplay Loki's. So
Right.
Right.
Because he had his own reaction in his cell after he got the news. It's just like,
And then more
Yeesh.
so afterwards when Thor sees him, which we'll get to that. That's
Yeah.
obviously a great part. But yeah, I get what you're saying, basically. You would have seen like more like aftermath after he got like the hammer back and like just like kind of like even like for like a few seconds, just like taking it in. You know what I mean?
yeah, it didn't
I
need
get
to
I
be
think I get what you're
much
saying.
because they elaborated on it later in MCU, but like It needed to be something.
Yeah.
A bit more than what I saw.
I mean,
A bit more than him just standing there solemn on the stairwell while his father embraced her. Yeah, I get
right.
it.
Rayshawn, your thoughts on the whole attack on from the Dark Elves, Frigga's death?
Fucking love that attack. I need it was that pump of adrenaline that I was looking for
It's a
in
good
the
point,
movie.
actually.
You know, I wanted to see everyone had a guard down. This motherfucker Heimdall didn't. There was no way of him communicating to people that we are under attack. So I wanted to see how fast they was going to react to all that.
Did you get
You
my
know,
text?
did you
Well,
not
you
see what I
stationed me 1,000 miles away.
Did you not see
I
what
never
I
get signal at the
saw?
Bifrost.
Did you see my messenger pigeon?
Um,
I never get signal at the Bifrost.
when watching this scene, and when I first saw Thor 2, this is one of those scenes that when you know that somebody's going to die. You just knew somebody's going to die. You're being under attack. You're not prepared for it. You got a motherfucking curse in the fucking cellar. You know, this was a great scene. That's all it was. It was a great scene. Far as the funeral, it was a beautiful funeral. It was nice, quiet. No one said a word, respectfully, and yeah, there's
So
gonna be hell to pay after that scene.
we do the mood does transition a little bit as we go back to Earth and we see what's up with Dr. Eric Selvig, and we see that he is basically running around naked in Stonehenge and was arrested and put into the lunatic asylum for reasons at this point we still don't know yet. However, at this point, we now know that he is aware of what the convergence is. And he is attempting to stabilize our realm to make sure that there's no main issues in terms of gravity or physics, like we've already seen from previous moments in the movie. Personal note, obviously, who doesn't love a good Stan Lee cameo in the MCU? This one is, I failed to kind of mention the last couple of Stan Lee cameos here on the Marvel Roundtable, so I want to make sure I make it a point to mention them. Which, of course, Eric Selvig is explaining it with like two different shoes, and he asks everybody in the crazy asylum any questions, and of course, Stan Lee just goes, "Can I just have my shoe back, man?" So just a cute little funny moment with the Stan Lee cameo, but Selvig is at least aware of what's going on. Now, the next part right after this is another great scene, which is a scene between, it's a conversation between Thor and Odin. So at this point, Jane has the ether in her and they're basically locking her up. And the two of them are basically arguing the fact that Odin's plan is to beef up the defenses and make sure that Malekith cannot get the ether, because we know at this point he's basically floating around. He could be right above him. And Thor's like, we don't know where they are. He goes, I want to take Jane off world because if he attacks us, more of us will die. And Odin says, it doesn't matter. As many of them will die as long as he doesn't get the ether. And he goes, and how are you any different than Malekith? And he goes, because I will win. And this goes back to what Basement was saying earlier, and I agree with him about basically Odin being a dick. But at the same time, I also appreciate the scene because it showcases, one, how far Thor has come as a character from the very beginning of the first movie, and also how sedentary, set in his ways Odin is, and kind of tips the scale in terms of Thor starting to come into his own as, I guess, you could say a leader in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It also shows that Odin is actually kind of scared.
That's a good point. Yeah, you could tell.
In
Yeah,
a lot of ways, when the leader overreacts, it's because they're scared.
and
Well, you need a more rational mind to take over.
And to their credit, though, and the thing of it that I really appreciated more than anything, they both make good arguments. It's not like either of them are completely wrong, but they both make very good arguments against on opposite sides.
It also makes sense mythology-wise that he'd go that way because he's the god of war.
Ares?
No,
Odin.
that's Greek. Odin is in Norse mythology. Odin is.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
he's going to side with the idea of going to
All right.
war
No,
more
you're
than
good.
anything else. But I don't know, man. Like it it plays on every level. It's just this maybe will it kind of shows insight the discrepancies between the first movie and the second movie for his character, and it's because I guess we don't see the transition because he goes into Odin's sleep. Um, I don't know. It's like almost a completely different character
What, Odin?
at times. Yeah,
Yeah.
I find it to be not completely different, but like changed enough, and you can piece it together to make sense of why it happened. But yeah,
Goes
but this
back
is
to
this is
what
a good
I
thing.
just said, that he's scared. That's his character change. His character,
I don't think he's scared. I think he's aligning with his nature of being more
You think he's
of a
more accurate to
warmonger.
the mythology?
Yeah.
I mean, good point. We do see, as I bear with me here, sorry, multitasking, not my thing. And also pronouncing names incorrectly. So at this point, Thor decides to go into business for himself, as they say. So he gets a hold of Heimdall and gets him off of his post, which makes me question who the fuck watches his post when he's not there. The job sucks.
Why is he left alone? Can you step?
Who's Anyway, he gets a hold of Heimdall, and he basically says that he plans on committing treason because Odin has closed the Bifrost and basically wants to cut off Asgard from anywhere else, so that if Malekith gets a hold of the Aether, he can't go nowhere.
He wears a fucking black scarf a lot, or fucking a black. What's the thing they wear in Mexico? Poncho.
Tunic?
Poncho, tunic, muumuu, it's all the same. So he then concocts a plan to basically take Jane off-world under his father's nose. Now, they don't reveal the entire plan on camera, which I actually kind of like because it gives a little bit of element to surprise to what the events are going to happen next. But he basically asks all his friends, said, listen, it's going to be treason if you survive. If you don't, you die. So, you in? Yeah, we're in. And basically alludes to the fact that they need to take him off of, off-world, and his plan is to take him to the dark world. Great idea. But he needs to find a way to do it without using the Bifrost, because Heimdall is sworn to Odin's servitude, and he can't go against Odin's decree. So they have to enlist someone who knows how to get off world without using the Bifrost, which of course is Loki. So while the plan's unraveling, I actually kind of like. I actually like this part because it's a mix of like interesting emotions. On one hand, I like the way they kind of build it, where it's like Thor's basically explaining the plan to his friends, and you see it happening in real time as the plan is progressing. But then on top of that, obviously the big scene is the scene where Thor is talking to Loki in a cell, and he, of course, is seeming like he has everything together. And then Thor says, "No more tricks, no more illusions." As soon as Loki drops the veil, you see him completely disheveled, things broken. I think he even has a cut on his foot or something. He is clearly a mess from his mother's death. And Thor basically says, I trust you, but I need your help. And, did she was your mother too? I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but this whole part was so good. I loved everything about like the escape scene of getting Jane out of the prison, up until the point where they're in the ship, which we'll get to in a second. But I also loved how everybody basically threatened him. He was like, "There'll be a line apparently," and Loki just having those one-liners that just worked so well. Also had to giggle of course at the fact that Loki was trying to stay low key. When Thor's trying to get him to escape, and he starts transforming into, like an Asgardian guard, and then he transforms Thor into Sif, and then he transforms into Captain America.
America.
Yeah, let's talk about patriotism. Just funny stuff. So up until the point where they got into the ship, I enjoyed all this. What do you guys think?
I have one question.
That's my favorite scene in the whole movie, honestly. I mean, Loki being broken out of jail by his brother, and then him running behind him like the happy younger brother. I'm free, I'm free, I'm
I
free,
knew you
let's
were gonna
go
come.
play. I think that's my favorite scene of this whole movie right there.
What was your question, Basement?
Do they know like the ether? Did they think it was destroyed? I can't remember. They read the book, or Odin did.
They believed it was
I can't.
they believe no. So
Can't
you know what's
remember,
funny?
to be
That's actually
honest.
that's a good point. So I
They
can't.
questioned it. They questioned it, and Odin said no. Like he don't know how to destroy it, or there's no.
Yeah, I think it
The
was
book
more.
So
does
they
not.
so they
The,
know it's not destroyed, right?
yes,
Yes,
the
yeah.
book
Right.
doesn't entail that it got destroyed or how to destroy it.
Because
So
Bor put it on a different realm.
so why that scene with Odin and Thor? Why is he saying, I'm gonna wait for it to come out. I'm gonna destroy it. We don't know how to destroy it. Whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
they're
a
gonna
bit of
attempt.
something I wanted to say.
I think Odin's thing was, if we keep her here, we at least have defenses. As good or not saying they're good ones. I'm saying they're not.
He's like, this ship could be over us right now, and I will kill everybody.
I'm not saying they're good defenses. I'm saying they're
The
ours.
man couldn't even fucking argue without falling over.
I'm not saying they're good defenses. I'm saying they're ours. But like,
lock the door and hope.
We'll leave the light on. But like, I think Tim actually made a good point in the chat too, just a minute ago. Another big driving force of this could be grief, and he's not thinking clearly, which is another. I think Thor even mentioned this. He goes, "That's grief and rage talking," which it could be.
Yeah.
But no, I think they confirmed that they thought the Dark Elves were destroyed. They thought the Dark Elves were destroyed, but they did not think the Aether was.
Odin said that the Dark Elves were all destroyed and there was nothing left of them.
Okay, so yeah, they knew that the Aether couldn't be destroyed technically, and then Thor goes on to say he's going to destroy it, and I get at that point in time, Odin we don't know how to destroy it,
right?
But to Thor's point, he would have said that just to get it out of her body, right? Because he's more wanting her to live than deal with the aftermath after that.
Yep.
But that's just something I wanted to clear up before we move into the actual scenes that we're talking about.
So Thor basically promises to Loki that he'll get him, help him get out of Asgard. In return, I will let you have revenge on Malekith for killing our mother. So Volstagg and Sif stalling the Asgardian soldiers, and Fandral is assisting their escape. Thor and Loki commandeer a Dark Elf spaceship, and I actually thought this was pretty clever, and I did kind of giggle at this part. So during the whole part where he's like steering the ship, Loki is just snickering the entire time. You just decapitated our grandfather, like little shits like that, little snarky remarks, which I kind of giggled. And then at the end, he's like, "Brilliant Thor plan. This is absolutely brilliant. Nothing could possibly go wrong." And literally like just fucking kicks him out of the ship. Thor then, of course, takes Jane, jumps out of it, and of course, it's his friend who I'm trying to remember the name here.
D'Artagnan. I'm just gonna call him D'Artagnan.
Fandral, who's hosting a smaller ship closer to the river waters as they chase the big Dark Elf ship, and they just narrowly sneak their way in. And did anybody else laugh at the part where like they escape on the other side and it's like the quiet dark world? It's like, ta-da!
Yeah,
like
it's just the ship
almost
flying
like
out.
cave, right?
Clever girl. I gotta admit that was a pretty clever ruse there by Thor.
I also feel like you're gonna get fucked releasing Loki.
Yeah.
Why? I get like we need to fix the immediate problem and then deal with the long-term fucking long con that Loki's obviously going to do. But I did want to mention in that that's the scene before we got to this where Loki was in that he drops the illusion, which means he was holding up an illusion the entire time of the entire time he was in that cell of him being this way and that way, reading books and being fine about everything, he was just fucked up from being imprisoned and didn't want anybody to see it, no matter who they were.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
That's true.
that's Loki, though. He is the illusionist. He is the master of all tricks. So he's gonna keep up an illusion and make everybody think I'm fine and I can still kill you at the snap of my finger. When in
Thing too is
reality,
he
he
keeps up
isn't.
that illusion as soon as he leaves. Like Loki is so hidden in illusions, we don't really ever see his true self ever until that one moment. That's the only moment you ever see him, I think, as who he truly is. Until
Right.
later in the series.
Yeah, but also at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, with this scene here, they have that moment. The Thor and Loki have that brotherly moment, and then Thor sits there and says, "I wish I could trust you." And it's at that moment. It's just like, "Oh, right in the gut."
Yeah. And
I was
he's
about
like,
to
"You can trust me," or something, and he's like, "Or you should." He says something, and
trust
he's
my
like, Would
rage.
you?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's later when they actually
Oh,
are
that's
like
yeah.
in the
That's
dark world. But he says, "Trust my rage." Which
Yeah, I mean the escape scene was, it was
it was decent. It was
good. It
okay.
was well
I love
executed.
the way they filmed it.
Yeah.
As he's talking about the plans going on with his friends, they're also showing the plan in action at the same
Yeah.
Yeah.
time. I love when movies do that.
That's smart.
The
Mhm.
Ocean's 11 thing.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, basically, yeah. Which I mean, I appreciate it. It helps follow along, and puts a little bit more
It also
impact.
cuts down a lot of runtime that
It
they
does.
don't need. But the thing is, I really like the main storyline in this movie, but a lot of the like bit part characters, like the whole thing of like fucking what's his face with the beard, Punisher, on the ground, just yelling.
What?
What?
He's the Punisher. He played the Punisher in the movie.
What?
It's the scene where Thor and Loki were trying to get out with
And then
Bane.
his friend Vegelbond.
Oh,
or
the
whatever the fuck
orange
his name
hair
is.
guy, the
Yeah.
red hair.
Mhm.
Oh, he was just getting beat up. Well, he wasn't getting beat up. Well, he
He
eventually
was
got beat
he
up.
was getting pinned down by like 20 of the
Yeah,
guards
yeah. And then he just
because
started
he was being
laughing.
arrested.
Yeah, what's his name? Fucking killing me right now. He's also in Dexter. He's in a bunch of fucking shit.
He is.
That's a
Whatever.
weird. But so no, at this point they're on the dark world and they're catching up to Malekith, right? And that's what we're kind of talking about, like the conversation between them, where it's like, they breathe a little bit more of the Loki Thor dialogue with the "I wish I could trust you, trust my rage," which again, just great shit, great stuff. Meanwhile on Earth, Darcy and Ian, the intern's intern, get Dr. Selvig out of the crazy house, and including all of his equipment to help kind of with the convergence and everything. I did also kind of smirk a little bit where he has like literally a huge fucking bag of medication and pills. And the second he walks out there, you see a flock of birds fly into a portal, and they're like, "Where'd it go?" And then it emerges right underneath us. And he goes, "The only thing one of the best feelings in the world is knowing that the world is crazier than you are." And then throws the pills right in the. I don't know, like
He took
some,
a
That was
shot of
after
green
he
liquid.
downed a whole fucking bottle of them, though.
Yes, it was a green liquid that he took a shot of.
yeah. So you could turn into the Hobgoblin.
Come on. Don't lay those breadcrumbs in front of me.
Come on, man. Not even the Hulk.
His name was Ray Stevenson. Ray Stevenson. I got it. Nobody cares.
Did you Google it?
Oh, I had to. Fuck.
He had to. He couldn't remember shit other than the Punisher.
I remember Dexter.
I don't
Hey,
remember him being Punisher.
Fusion Rome. He was Punisher in Punisher 2, Warzone.
Oh God.
Warzone
Okay.
one
Yeah.
was.
That's.
With John Travolta.
That's the worst one.
Is it?
I don't think it is.
It's
Travolta was
not.
fucking. Travolta was fucking hilarious in that movie. If anything, even though he
He
wasn't
dragged
supposed
his
to be.
body through like fucking flaming wreckage at some point.
We'll talk about that in a movie another time. But anyway, so Selvig and everybody's together now, and they're trying to figure out what's going on with the convergence. So meanwhile, on Gesundheit, Loki tricks.
There's
Excuse
an
me.
actual name for these places.
Do you want to try and pronounce it?
I could. What's it?
SVARTALFHEIM. Bless you.
Nailed it.
It's
So
tough. Everything else is silent.
so yeah. It's just S word. Everything else is silent. So Thor and Loki are obviously ready to confront Malekith with all this. And just as Thor unleashes the shackles on Loki, he instantly stabs him.
That caught me off guard.
Thor falls down the hill. We see Loki do a couple more beat him ups, and Thor actually goes to grab Mjolnir and summons for Mjolnir, but Loki cuts off his left hand, or excuse me, his right hand. So he basically throws Jane at Malekith's feet and says, "I present to you the Aether. All I ask for in return is that you give me a good seat to watch Asgard burn." So at this point, Malekith extracts the Aether out of Jane Foster, tosses her aside, so just kind of floating up in there. And of course, it was all a trick. As Thor says now, it's revealed his hand was never cut off, and he actually was an illusion by Loki. Tries to use Mjolnir to blow up the Aether, and it doesn't go so
Infinity
hot.
Stone.
It turns from a liquid into a solid of kind of stuff. But I mean, what'd you guys think of this part? And Geek Bot, we'll be right back.
This
Well-
was the first inkling that this stuff can't be destroyed. I mean, he blasted it with fucking lightning, and it just crystallized and then started floating again. So it's like, well, fuck.
I mean,
And
Jane.
that's what the stones, yeah.
This is when I realized Jane had become a container
Yep.
in the plot line.
Yep.
Like from going from Earth to Asgard, her character just stopped existing. Well, maybe not. It stopped existing when she became an
The
illusion.
stone at the very beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
She was a container the
She
entire
was.
time.
She was a to-go container. A couple things I wanted to mention too. So there's apparently a running joke in the MCU Phase 2. I'm not sure if you guys have heard about this, the Luke Skywalker thing.
Because yeah.
Yep. So as you know what I'm talking about, apparently it was a subliminal message or a subliminal thing because Phase 2 is obviously second phase, right? And they were thinking of Phase 1, 2, and 3 for Marvel movies at this point. So in every Marvel Phase 2 movie, someone loses a hand, which is a callback to when Luke Skywalker loses his hand in Empire Strikes
Phase
Back.
2, which is actually
the
Phase 1.
Yeah. So in the Iron Man movie, in Iron Man 3, it was Aldrich Killian. In this movie, it's Thor, and we'll reference that in the other future ones as well. But just a fun little thing. I mean, pretty clever ruse to take advantage of Loki, because obviously the super elf recognized that Loki was a prisoner and kind of could easily win the trust of him. I mean, clever, but also, I mean, they didn't know how to take the Aether out of Jane, so I mean, I guess that's why they kind of needed to present it to Malekith. But obviously, doesn't go so hot as Malekith is still able to absorb the Aether and starts to just kind of peace out. Doesn't even bother fighting these guys, which can't say I blame him. Then the fight ensues. A fight ensues between the super elf and then the regular elves. Loki holds his own. The super elf and Thor have a pretty decent fight, all things considered. And Loki actually stabs the super elf until the super elf actually grabs onto Loki and pierces him with his own sword, but not before activating one of those black hole fucking grenade things, which again, so badass.
They need to be in Halo.
Yeah, they do.
How strong is this super elf? Is he basically Hulk? Because that's the vibe I got.
I mean, I think close to it. Or
Abomination.
I think he's a little stronger than an Asgardian, but I have no idea. Or at least
Now,
on
I got a
par.
question.
Yeah.
Is Loki officially dead, or is this an illusion?
So it
That's been
is.
the question of every Thor movie.
There.
So with Loki stabbing himself, he seems to die in Thor's arms, and Thor and Jane are now stranded on the Dark World, believed that Loki is dead.
Because if you notice, when he was dying, he started to age. He sort of
Well,
aged.
that's I think his discoloration of his skin because he's a frost giant.
hmm
He's a Frosty.
I love frosties. So
That's discrimination. Actually, you can't call him that.
damn it, copyright. So Thor, cradling Loki in his arms, promises to tell their father of his sacrifice, and of course he says, "I didn't do it for him." And Thor, following Loki's apparent death, Thor and Jane discover there's another portal in a nearby cave and reunite with all the humans on Earth. So this scene was kind of a little okay, like again, plot
You're
convenience.
in the middle. You're on the middle of the dark world, and all of a sudden you hear a cell phone ringing.
Yep. I'll tell you right now,
like,
she didn't have fucking AT&T. That's for damn sure, because she still would have.
This is kind of where I decided to kill myself.
this is where it just you're going so good, and then nope.
It's
Yeah.
the same spot where she had first teleported at.
Yep. Well, no,
That's-
it's not. It's not. It's the first place that they were throwing items. So there's like, why are there so many shoes?
Well, yeah, that. Yeah.
Right. And there's the car keys and all that stuff.
Well, I
So-
mean that warehouse there, basically.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Are they in the warehouse? I can't remember the people.
well, they
calling them.
get there.
At the beginning of the
So
movie, they're in the warehouse. We're dropping the keys and stuff.
No,
Yeah, yeah.
like when they're calling. Or
But she
whatever.
had found those keys and the,
Yeah.
and
I
the
thought they were in the
can and
house.
everything.
They get she finds the cell phone from it ringing while they're still on the dark world, and
Yep.
then she finds the keys shortly after that, and she's talking to Eric
Mhm.
during this whole time.
no,
for
she's
this phone
talking.
call, like,
She's
trying to
talking.
keep him no, she's talking to Eric, the guy she went on the date with.
Oh yeah. I thought you meant
Oh,
Eric
his name's
Selvig.
Eric too. Holy shit!
Nah, his name is something else.
I don't know. The guy was pretty smooth, man. I'm not gonna lie.
Anyway, but yeah, so she's talking the entire time. You're right, and then finds the portal and is able to get back to Earth. A lot of
And
convenience.
that's where JP's line. So who's Eric comes
Yeah.
in.
Oh, okay. I thought it was Richard.
Right. I thought Richard. It was Richard.
Richard,
Yeah.
that's right, yeah.
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 Too many
Okay.
fucking names. Yeah, Dick. So Jane miraculously gets Thor back to Earth, and they converge with Eric Selvig, Ian, and Darcy at their place they're in London. Why aren't you wearing pants? Because it helps him think. So there, they learn that obviously Malekith's plan is to unleash the Aether upon all the realms because the convergence is happening. Because isn't that a fucking convenience? And here's another thing that just kind of makes me go like, really? So they mentioned that the convergence happens once every 5,000 years and that there is a specific point of Earth where the result will be the strongest. Okay, cool. I can buy that. Selvig says a lot of famous landmarks on Earth are used in conjunction with where the convergence was. Again, I can buy that. But you mean to tell me that they just happen to be in London?
London.
At the same time that this is
And
happening.
they're just like a hop and a skip over from
Well, they
where-
were investigating the anomalies, and that's where it was strongest, right? So I can.
Well, no,
get
they
them
went
to
to-
be-
they-
It's also where he was already imprisoned in the
they were
mental
trying to
asylum.
catch up with Selvig.
and
They
he
were
was also
keep up
trying to set up those fucking things on
in
Stonehenge.
Stonehenge. Yeah. So I mean, it just
It's a big
I-
convenience.
There's,
yeah.
a lot of there's a lot of convenience. This is a convenience store of the movie.
I mean, not again. It's kind of like the Jane Foster, like, oh, she just happens to get the Aether at this way at this point. Like, again, not saying like I hate it, just like, but anyway. Yeah.
But still, I can accept it.
So obviously Malekith shows up, starts to use up his Aether stuff, and this is when shit gets crazy. So the final battle ensues. We see Darcy utilizing the posts the posts earlier that Eric Selvig had, and the craziness just ensues. They're hopping from all sorts of fucking different dimensions, or rather, all different worlds. I gotta admit, some of the moves in this thing were pretty fucking clever. I think one of them was like they were fighting, and then Thor throws Mjolnir, and then it goes through Malekith. And then what I particularly like was the fact that like Mjolnir had trouble like finding where the fuck Thor was at some of these
Yeah.
fights, which I'm like,
Yeah.
that's pretty fucking clever. And then just them like cars flying, showing up, things disappearing. I mean, it was just fucking chaos. I thought it was kind of cool. Not the best battle I've ever seen, but I mean, it was kind of like fucking ADHD. I couldn't keep. I was like overstimulated.
Like
My
watching
favorite
a
part of
Doctor
that
Strange
was
fight.
Yeah.
it's a street fight.
Yeah.
My favorite
Exactly.
part of that with Mjolnir is it flying past Darcy and her going, Mjolnir.
Mew 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 mew, because she couldn't pronounce it. I enjoyed it. What did you think about the whole final fight basement?
I didn't. In comparison to the rest of the movie, I didn't enjoy it as much.
Yeah.
I never really enjoy the fight scenes in Marvel movies as much as the rest of the movie because the fight scenes are super CGI and cut to pieces most of the time. Sometimes you get some good. This one does have some good, but at the same time, it's like
Blockbuster.
things are happening, but there's no way to predict anything that's happening.
So the part that I'm a little perplexed at is honestly, so the idea is that like Darcy, Jane, and Selvig are trying to obviously just stall for time because the convergence only happens for a brief moment of time, and they're trying to basically hold Malekith at bay and distract Malekith
Trying to put
until
those shit downs.
yeah
Those
until
fucking poles down.
until Malekith is not able to access the other realms and create the eternal darkness. So here's the part that I'm a little confused about is the final part of how Malekith dies. So Thor puts two of the spikes into him, which basically transport other parts of his bodies to other realms. Okay. The Aether looks like he's regenerating him, which that makes sense. But then the last one, his whole body gets transported to another realm. And then the very last scene, as we saw, where like Thor gets knocked down and his ship is about to come crashing down, Selvig is able to, realign it and transport it to where Malekith is and have it basically crush him completely. So I don't know if I buy that. Like, I mean, the Aether seems. I know the Aether is one thing, but the body host holding it, I mean, it just, again, little head scratching for me. I don't know about you guys.
I get why you're saying that. What happened to the Ether? It's still in his body, right?
Yes.
He ain't dead.
Well, it gets removed out of his body.
Oh, it got removed.
Yeah, we know in the end credit scene it
Oh.
gets removed.
Oh yeah, I didn't finish it. That's probably why.
I straight up can't lie. My attention at this point had waned a lot.
Oh yes, because they brought it to the yes. Okay.
Yeah, we'll get to that last time, but it just
I
seemed
remember parts.
it's just weird to me that like I don't know how indestructible the Aether can make somebody, I guess is the question, because if it's protecting
Well, if
Jane,
it's
I don't know.
indestructible, then technically its host could or could not be. If the host gets destroyed, it still finds another host, right?
That's why I'm saying it's a little confusing.
Well,
It's a
that's never
symbiote.
really
It's a
established.
symbiote. It's just
Kind of, kind of.
I mean, Heather, what'd you think of like the I mean, did it seem to wrap up okay for you as far as Malekith's death and all that stuff?
There's a lot of CGI.
Yeah.
It was a lot of CGI, yes, but it kind of did, but at the same time, it kind of didn't because it's like, how did it get removed if the ship is on top of him?
One piece at a time.
You know, the cat's going crazy because he keep grabbing his attention.
Yep.
You just have to crash into him with the ship.
So what happened was at I guess so. So at the very end, so Malekith's body was sent to another realm, and his ship was crashing and was starting to come down, and at the last minute they were trying to pull Thor out. No, Jane's trying to pull Thor out of like the harm's way, but instead Selvig just reconfigures the spikes and transports it to wherever Malekith was, and so the ship crashes completely down onto Malekith.
I mean, to Jurgen's point, he said the Aether didn't take over Thanos. I feel like everything that is an Infinity Stone gets like refined, because you saw the Tesseract wasn't a stone. It gets refined. Like, I mean, they kind of change the way it is to be like they harness its energy, and therefore the Infinity Gauntlet.
Maybe he actually died from that shipwreck because he had no arms to like protect him to use that powers.
He needs arms.
The girl had, I mean, what's her name?
Jane.
Yeah, but that only emerged when somebody that she didn't want touching her went to touch her.
Yeah.
Right. So that's my
It
point.
was protecting her body, its vessel,
Yeah.
from things that she was afraid of.
Maybe there's like a tipping point of protection it can give, and a ship crashing into you is that tipping point.
Right, but you can't physically attack. You can't throw any, attack without no
Well, it's
arms,
like
right?
it's kind of like liquid. I'm pretty sure it could like leave your body and protect you in some way, but I don't know. This is why
She didn't throw her arm.
No, not her.
With the
I'm talking
cops,
about,
she didn't throw her arms.
ain't
They
talking
just
about
went
her.
to.
I'm
They
talking
just
about
touched
him.
her.
No, I'm just thinking like if part of her body was cut off or whatever, could it not protect it as like a being outside but still housed inside, because it's liquid to an extent?
I want to say that she's a good character, so I guess it was all about protection versus the bad guy. It's all
Oh,
about like,
no, I don't think so. I think the only thing the thing cares about is protecting itself, and it's found a host, and therefore it will protect the host to protect itself. Otherwise, it's able to be captured in its liquid form or whatever
so how
form
did
it is.
protect him when the ship was falling?
Right? Writing?
I don't. This is the question though, because you had each one of his arms transported away through the portal and ripped off of his body, but none of the ether was with those appendages. It was all still swirling around him.
Which it should have been, because it was shown to like circulate like blood flow through the body. This is why kind of the last like not even the last, but close to the last 15% of this movie I'm not really a big fan of.
Can't imagine why.
Sort of bullshit.
It just raised more questions.
There's a lot of bullshit and a lot of
were
CGI.
not answered in the next Thor movie. It raises more questions because it is a liquid, and it was swirling around him, and it should have protected him from even those spikes that Thor was throwing at him, but it didn't.
I mean, it's kind of cool that they jump between realms and stuff, but that realm where that fucking monster comes from, that big whatever the fuck it is.
Oh yeah, the Jotunheim.
It literally had a cave outside of the end of a glacier that it would, if it stood on, it would. Like, why would you build your house there, bro? You can't even leave.
From the same people who made the defense system of Asgard.
Yeah,
that was a good point that you just made. The ether did not protect the Malekith when Thor was throwing those spikes at him.
But also, Hazard, why would it protect anybody if it's indestructible? Right. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it has, and that gets me to believe it has to take on like some of the will of the person it possesses, I guess.
My only theory into that is that maybe it protected Jane Foster because it knew Jane couldn't protect herself from whatever was coming.
Or it was because the convergence was not yet ready. And it needed that host until the convergence was complete.
I think the writing was just not there.
Well, in any case, the ether is safe now, and Thor returns back to Odin. and this is again a great scene. So
Anthony
Thor returns
Hopkins,
to
baby.
Asgard, where Odin offers him the kingdom and the throne, and Thor declines it, saying he'd rather be a good man than a great king. And of course, Odin says, "Is this you I hear, or the woman on Earth?" He goes, "Do I not hear Mother's voice every time you speak?" And asks if he needs to return Mjolnir. He says, "Keep it," and gives him. He goes, I cannot give you my blessing or wish you good fortune, but even if I were proud of my son, I couldn't say that either, only with my heart." They're kind of alluding to, like, I can't condone your action, but I respect it. And of course, it's all bullshit because it's revealed that Odin is truly Loki, the throne. Now, one part I did gloss over was the fact that in between all this craziness with the portal stuff, we did see that Loki had taken the form of a Asgardian warrior and returned back to Asgard to tell Odin that Loki was dead. And we didn't quite see. I wish there was, again, much like a couple of other scenes with Odin, which was a little more with that kind of terms like how he would reveal and how he would act. But somewhere between that and this, Loki is now in charge of Asgard. Or at
Odin.
least, well,
What happened to Odin?
He went to go sleep for
we'll
10,000
have
years.
to.
He's like, I'm taking a nap.
We'll have to
fuck
find
up.
out and see what happens to
Wait for the
Odin.
third Thor movie.
Yes, we'll have to wait until what happens to see with Odin down the road.
He decided to take a fucking 10,000-year nap. So my wife's dead. I'm just gonna go
in
into sleep and have
Norway.
wet dreams.
He went on
Um,
vacation.
so of course the two big parts of it after is the post-credit scenes. So this is actually the first MCU movie that has two of them. Normally they've had one so far, with the exception of the Avengers movie. But this one's the first one that has the first one after Avengers that has the double features, and I believe every movie after this has two. I think it's the thing for a second. Yeah, I think it's every
There's
movie
only
after
a
this has
few-
it.
I think it's only a few that only have two.
That was every other one.
I feel
Well,
like
anyway,
there's a lot.
there is a lot. So there's one mid-credit scene that's kind of, or the end credit scene's kind of cutesy. The mid-credit scene, a little bit more gravity to it. So the end credit scene shows Thor reuniting with Jane on Earth for a passionate embrace. But while somewhere in London, one of the frost monsters from Jotunheim, apparently transported to Earth during the final battle, just continues just running amok. So cute little end scene. Like, oh, that's
Is it
still
really
fucking
cute?
there.
It's killing everybody.
Didn't kill anybody. It's on Earth now. It's cute.
What?
But
That doesn't make sense.
the big scene that we see is, of course, the fact that Volstagg and Sif visit the Collector and entrust the Aether to his care, commenting that with the Tesseract already in Asgard, having two Infinity Stones so close together would be dangerous. But of course, as they leave,
Why
the
do they
Collector-
trust the Collector?
the Collector remarks, 1 down, 5 to go.
His name is literally the Collector. If you want to find rare shit, you'd go to the Collector.
Well, hold on. The Collector is, what's his real name? His real name is Tenelier Tivan,
But he's
Also-
known as.
the Collector.
So, come on.
It's his nickname. I'm just saying that's his real name. Hi, Tanelier. But anyway, so obviously this being a bigger illusion, the fact that
Why would they give it to? It makes no sense why they would give it to him.
they wouldn't keep two of them so close to each other.
Yeah, but the last time they put it on the same fucking. They're just retarded. The last time they put it on the same planet, they.
Listen,
like,
we later
where it was happening.
we later found out that technically speaking, there were always two Infinity Stones on Earth.
I just don't know why you willingly give this to someone called the Collector.
Personally, I think that, well, if you're going to give one Infinity Stone to anybody, well, yeah, true. It's not even like a lesser known stone. I don't know. It's the Asgardians. Again, their defense systems are shit. Anyway,
I think they might be fucking all dumb as shit.
so anyway, I got excited for the mid-credit scene because obviously it's kind of cementing the idea of, oh shit, okay, we are going for the Infinity Stones. They've been kind of teasing and alluding to the concept of the Infinity Stones. There's been little slight nods, but now it's like, okay, bitching. We're actually going to go into the Infinity Stones. So I got excited for that. And of course, now with the Collector, we now have the idea of space, which we'll obviously explore in 2 weeks when we cover the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. But that ends Thor: The Dark World. So I'll let everybody kind of get their thoughts out first. I'll start with Heather this time. Heather, your thoughts overall on Thor: The Dark World?
Again, out of all the Marvel movies we'd seen up to this point, it's not a drastic repeat. It's not Iron Man for a fourth time. This is one of the movies and one of the movie series. I mean, even with the third movie coming up for this character in and of itself, it continues to be that something new.
Right.
And it continues to be heavily story driven and very well acted. And the story, yes, there are parts that don't make sense, but overall, 90% of the story makes sense and actually fits to what they're trying to tell for not just Thor, but also the Marvel Universe in its entirety.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I love this movie.
So out of 10, what would you give it?
I would give it at least a 7.
All right. Very solid. Basement.
No.
Yep.
This is like the thing is, it's hard for me to categorize this because like there's things I like about this movie and there's things I don't like. I
Yeah.
mean, there's things that they do very well, and most of it is interactions between certain characters. This is why I like the first 60% of this movie so much more than I like the later half. It was on track for me to being as good or better than the last Thor. And the problem is the villain useless. He's garbage fest.
That is a
I have
common
no
problem. Yeah.
He's garbage fest. I mean, the true villain is still Loki, even though he's not portrayed the villain until technically the very end. But whatever. It's I don't know. Like I loved every interaction that happened. Like I said, I loved the first 60% of this movie, and then the last bit fucking took me out. I didn't really care. The final fight scenes were just there's a hefty amount of CGI in this movie. They devote a lot to like the flying fights that are happening in Asgard that I think they could have used to bolster the storyline a bit better or give us more of the things that were good. Because for fuck's sakes. Oh, and this fucking movie is like the movie of sky beams. Because every single time they go anywhere, sky beams. But yeah, I mean, it's still decent. I think, what did I give the first Thor? 7, I think. I'm gonna say 7.
I think so. Yeah, I think you gave it maybe even a 7.5.
7.5. This one I will go 1 point below, so 6.5. If I get the first one, 7.5.
All right.
Still a good movie.
Except for the last couple minutes.
Like, you don't build up the villain. You don't make me care about when you fight the villain. Realistically.
True.
I mean, he was a fucking pansy ass bitch for the 90% of the movie.
That being said, Rayshawn, your thoughts on Thor: The Dark World?
I kind of mostly agree with Heather, and then I started to listen to what Basement was saying, and
Damn
my
it.
overall
Never listened to me.
rating was 7.5. But then Basement talk.
That's how it goes. He just drags you down.
And I would have to drop it down to a 7. But again, I still agree with Heather. Everything that she has said is very story driven. It's easy to follow, easy to like be attached to a character, and then lose that attachment instantly because of the dialogues and the interaction that Odin and Thor and Loki and Odin, everyone like the circle. Everybody played a part in this movie, and they played it well. This person needed this person, this person needed that person, and I think it was a good movie. I personally like Thor. I like Thor as a character. As far as the MCU movies, I like Thor, and like what Heather said, every movie, it's 3 movies so far, I believe.
It's only 2 that we've seen so far for
Oh,
the show.
They'll get
yeah.
there.
I'm
But we're getting there. We're getting there.
Your future. It's all good.
both movies are different. You know, you're not gonna watch the second movie and be like, oh no, but this remind me of the first one. It's like, why am I watching this again? You know what I'm saying? Or
That's a good
I yeah, damn. What I want to say it's future, but it doesn't.
point.
That's it.
All right.
It's
It's a
'cause I
good
know
point.
so
It's a
much.
good point though, because
Yeah.
like you don't want to see a rehashing of the first one. You want to see it doesn't need to be like way different. It still needs to hold some truth to the first one, but you don't want to see the same movie again. So I mean, this
Yeah,
does
Yeah.
that.
hmm And yes, I do agree with you, Basement. The fucking villain sucks. He's weak.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm actually glad that Loki wasn't. He's always gonna perceive as a villain, but in this movie, he was not the villain.
Yeah,
Till like
that's true.
later on.
So, everybody brings up valid points, and it's hard for me to disagree with any of them. Just for me personally, what I found very interesting about this was usually in the Marvel movies, I say usually, it's not always, but usually the big thing is obviously the big climactic fight scenes and the action, right?
Hmm.
That's not what sold me on this movie. What sold me on this movie, ironically, was the lack of action, but I mean that in a good way. This felt more akin to, actually, Basement said it earlier, like the Lord of the Rings, and it's not wrong, because yes, the action in the Lord of the Rings movies are fantastic, but sometimes the character development, the dialogue between those characters can really make it shine through, especially in the right scenes and moments. Obviously, Loki stole almost every scene that he's in. Duh. But as I was mentioning numerous times on here before, some of the character moments between the characters, such as like Thor and Odin, Odin and Loki, Loki and Thor, the family ties and all that stuff, was great, because if nothing else, it helped flush out and understand these characters more. And obviously we know Loki's alive. We know that Thor is going to be continuing to go on to bigger and better things, but it kind of helps cement the concept of these characters, but beyond being just one dimensional. And to me personally, after the first movie, I did not think them as one dimensional. But this added more complexity to them. And again, I have to point to the fact of they handled Frigga's death so much better than Coulson's. And it just it just goes to show that you can do anything with a movie if it's written right and it's done the right way. That being said, the villain does suck. The villain is evil for the sake of evil, and it's ironic because he's almost a background character, which is interesting, because you think of like this like looming threat over you, right? I did read this funny thing online, and someone said like, "Oh, why didn't Shield get involved with this happen?" Well, because it wasn't fucking on Earth for more than 20 seconds. So I mean, when all this shit was happening with the Convergence, it was pretty much done and over with in less than an hour anyway. So, but it kind of it flushed out more of these roles and these characters. And yes, Odin was a complete and utter dickhead, but there might be the reason there was changes for it, and it created a different dynamic and everything. So now Thor is trying to be the mighty Thor, the man who is the representative of Asgard. He is the mascot. He is the man. He is the one trying to be that, which is something they're obviously going to be talking about more when we get into Thor Ragnarok, and how that whole concept is going to change for better or for worse. But honestly, it's funny because a lot of people shit on this movie, and there's parts of it I certainly understand, with the threat seemingly kind of like being hollow with the Aether and the Dark Elves. But on the other hand, if you take away the action stuff and just look at like straight up character development, it's probably one of the stronger Marvel movies that we've seen out of all of them, including the first one. So for me personally, despite people saying it was bad, I thought it was a very, very solid movie despite its shortcomings, which to which I agree with Basement. The last, like, what was it, 20 minutes? Yeah, but the reveal of Loki being Odin, I nearly crapped myself. That was a fun little tease. And of course, the idea of like, oh, we're actually going to be fucking going for the Infinity Stones. All right, let's see where this goes. So I'm going right with you guys and giving it a 7. I think that it had great cast, great acting, great character development, great the action scenes maybe were not the best, obviously, but that's not what drew me into this. Even, I'll be honest, I don't know about you guys, even Thor's friends as like the background characters, I enjoyed them as well too. I mean, I know well, I enjoyed them better than the last one. I felt like they're just there for, I mean, they tried to make them more important and relevant, but listen, we can give shit to Asgard's defenses, but we know, I mean, it's not like Asgard's going to like get destroyed or anything. It's fine. So that being said, I think we're good in wrapping up Thor: The Dark World here. I want to thank everybody who's tuned in. What, Basin?
I just wanted to say, like, the movie itself, it does, the one thing it does really good is it handles being a movie on its own, but also moving the actual universe forward. But the cost of that is the climax of this movie. That's the way I look at it.
That's a good way of putting it. That's not bad. Yeah, that's actually pretty. I can get behind that. Yeah, that makes sense.
But that's it. That's all I have to say.
Okay. So before we wrap up here, any last minute thoughts on Thor: The Dark World? Heather, Rayshawn, anything?
I'm actually glad it was like not so much action, because then it would just crumble the movie. It would be like a Iron Man movie.
And I do agree with Frank here. This was one of the first Marvel movies to go a bit more dark.
Yes.
Just wait till we get to the next Thor.
It made sense to go a bit more dark with the story for this one because of what they chose to write the story for. And it definitely did not go unappreciated.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good movie.
So, with that being said, we want to thank everybody for joining us in the chat, joining us live here on youtube.com/hornygoat. And of course, you can check us out on your favorite podcasting platforms and download us as well. If you haven't hit the subscribe button here on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Check out all the other previous Marvel Roundtables in here and on, of course, the Horny Goat Podcasting Network. We want to thank everybody for tuning in. Appreciate your love and support. And make sure you join us next Monday as we continue deeper into Phase 2. We hit another sequel and arguably one of the, amongst fans, one of the best MCU films to date, as we see Captain America struggle not only from the ghosts from his past, but also what's going to happen with his future with S.H.I.E.L.D. as we tackle Captain America, the Winter Soldier.